The 7th gen iPad mini can't replace your laptop. It doesn't come with the most cutting edge hardware, and Apple Intelligence could still be a figment of Siri's imagination by the time the next iPad mini is launched. Despite all of that, this could be the dream iPad. Igor Stravinsky once said that constraint only serves to obtain precision of execution. In other words, we often do our most creative work when operating within limitations. Of course, he was talking about art, but the same could be true of the iPad mini. Because in pushing the boundaries of the larger iPad models, Apple has turned the Airs and Pros into genuine laptop contenders. By consequence, it's allowed them to become awkward, unwieldy tablets without a clear purpose. The iPad mini, on the other hand, while largely unchanged in this generation, keeps the original dream of the iPad alive. Its truly portable, portrait-first form factor channels the very essence of what a tablet should be, and there's essentially no alternative if you're looking for a tablet in this 8.3-inch display range. The iPad mini is capable of doing a lot of what the larger iPads can do, but its sheer proportions compels you to use it differently. If you choose to, you can simply ignore all of the desktop-like features and allegedly pro apps which have bloated iPadOS in recent years, and take it for what it is, an excellent tablet. So your laptop is not going to be replaced by an iPad mini. But there are two devices that could be. The first one of those is your Kindle. The iPad mini comes in at a roughly 3:2 aspect ratio, which is perfect size for a book, and truly the iPad mini makes a brilliant e-reader. Of course, you can use Apple Books as well, so you're not locked into that Amazon Kindle ecosystem. But even if you are using the Kindle app, these days it's got so many brilliant features that make reading on an iPad really enjoyable. There's a display option for every reader or context, from different font styles and sizes to different page colors. And of course in iOS you have lots of ways to manage your display, including things like night shift and true tone, which will enable you to reduce your blue light exposure if you're reading before bed. Admittedly, when you are using this in dark mode, you will notice the contrast between the bezels and the background of your display, and this is where an OLED screen definitely would have improved the experience. But flip over to any graphic novel and you'll immediately realize that this is still a beautiful, vibrant display. Sometimes the aspect ratio isn't quite perfect for manga like Pluto, but if you can live with that, then you've got an amazing little manga e-reader on your hands. If you're reading for educational purposes, then it's also really easy to make annotations or copy text or screenshots over to other apps. So I think it's a really strong contender. The second device that your iPad mini could replace is your gaming handheld. These days iOS gives you options to loads of different gaming systems, so you don't have to be locked into the App Store or Apple Arcade. You can even put things like emulators on this device or use it for game streaming. Now, using the touch controls has never been something I've enjoyed, but if you do use this for tabletop games like Risk, it can be a really cool little device to have with you on the go. And if you want to play something with a bit more precision, then you can connect pretty much any Bluetooth controller to the iPad mini too. I recommend picking up the GameSir G8 Plus, which snaps onto your controller, connects via Bluetooth and turns it into a little Steam Deck competitor. With this particular controller, you do have to really line up the power and volume buttons so that they're not depressed while you're actually using the controller, but it really is a joyous gaming experience. Cozy games like Stardew Valley or even messing around in GTA San Andreas can be really fun on an iPad. For the most part though, I use it to connect to my PlayStation 5 and use it for remote play. And the fact that we do get a bumped up base storage of 128GB on the iPad mini 7 means that you can load a lot of games on here if you like. That's no guarantee that they're always going to run, and here you do see the limitations in terms of processing power with the iPad mini 7. I cannot get Assassin's Creed Mirage to go beyond initializing graphics. So while this is allegedly capable of doing things like advanced ray tracing, I wouldn't bet on it to run every title you want. That said, if you do have a ROM collection that you want to run through an app like RetroArch, you are capable of getting a really awesome gaming experience using some of those older consoles. I will do a full gaming review for the iPad mini 7, so subscribe if you want to see that. For more general media and streaming, the iPad mini is a perfect middle ground between squinting at your phone screen and dealing with the heft of an iPad Pro while you're in bed. You can pop it onto a folio case and it's small enough to fit on pretty much every free ledge that you have in the house. I've been using it to catch up on YouTube and listen to music while running on the treadmill, and because it's not great to arch your neck downwards while you are exercising, I can actually put it on a bookshelf in front of our vinyl collection, and it's perfect there as well. The iPad mini is also great for watching live sport, especially if you're the sort of person who wants to use the multitask features to pop into Twitter and voice your opinion on the referee midway through the game. And I like the fact that it's discreet enough not to draw too much attention in public. I've definitely found when you have a larger 12.9-inch iPad, for example, if you're using it on the train, you will get people around you just kind of watching what you're doing. That's not always what you want, but this screen size is kind of discreet enough. And if, like me, you have kids who like to come into your bed at night time, then you can stay in there, keep watching your football match while they kind of fall asleep next to you. In terms of audio, while this is a small device, it's got stereo speakers that sound really crisp. They lack a bit of bass compared to bigger devices, and it's no contest really compared to the iPad Pro. But just as a mini device to listen to a podcast while you're having your breakfast, this is a really great option. One of the cool things about using an iPad to do this rather than having my phone on me all the time, it just means that I have a little bit of distance to my WhatsApp conversations and things like that, which take me out of the moment and prevent me from really learning something. Because it's not just all fun and games, the iPad mini can also be used in a productivity or educational setting. The sheer ability to hold the iPad mini in one hand and write or sketch with the other makes it a perfect note-taking device. But it's also small enough to comfortably hold the device in two hands and use your thumb to type onto the digital keyboard. I actually wrote the script for this video doing exactly that using the Bear note-taking app. And as someone who mostly finds it easier to just speak to my device and take notes via dictation, the iPad mini feels like a really good little device for that. The iPad mini doesn't come with an amazing camera in terms of taking photos, but if you just want to scan documents that you can then mark up in a PDF format, this is something I do all the time, especially with things like language textbooks. I just make digital backups of them, and then I can go through the exercises as many times as I want without actually ruining the books. That brings us on to the Apple Pencil Pro, which is now compatible with the iPad mini. That is one of the frustrating things if you are upgrading from the iPad mini 5 or 6. You're going to have to get a brand new pencil. I've always been skeptical as to how much of an upgrade it really is, but I have to say that I've been enjoying the hover feature a lot more than I expected, and the pinch feature that allows you to activate a shortcut or just cycle through different functions on whatever app you're using is actually pretty useful. Even just on the home page, if you move an app to the wrong folder, just pinch and undo. It's actually really convenient. Likewise, the refine feature could do a lot to improve my handwriting. I mean, using some basic tests, it's still not massively improving it, but I can imagine that if you do use the pencil to take down handwritten notes, then it will help you to kind of tidy things up and make things look really neat. The precision of the pencil can also be great for editing photos in the Lightroom app, just being able to get the exact point on those sliders that you really want. And this model actually comes with faster USB-C transfer speeds, so if you want to take this on the go and quickly plug in your SD card to check how your photos look, this is a great option too. And look, this is not to say that the iPad mini 7 is a perfect device, because we all know that Apple have done the bare minimum in terms of upgrading this from the iPad mini 6. Arguably the biggest missed opportunity is to improve the display. Apple is determined to keep ProMotion out of the iPad mini lineup, so you will have to make do with a 60Hz refresh rate. Honestly, this is not going to matter to a lot of people. The only places you're really going to notice it is in things like animations around iOS. Apps don't appear to open as quickly as they do on a 120Hz ProMotion display. That is, unless you are a digital artist or heavy user of the iPad pencil, because you probably will notice that the trail that's left by your pencil doesn't keep up as quickly as it would on an iPad Pro. If you're scrolling very quickly through a web page, that might also be somewhere that you notice it. But generally, if you're just watching media, a lot of that is going to be in 24 Hz anyway, and gaming is probably realistically going to cap out at 60 Hz anyway on an iPad mini, so it's not too much to worry about unless you are really prone to motion sensitivity. And this is also where the jelly scroll is going to divide people. Running a couple of tests on this, I can see a very slight element of jelly scroll, but then using the iPad in day-to-day life, I was unable to detect it. It's only going for these very specific tests where you really can notice the difference. I don't know if I trust my eyes on this, so I would recommend going into an Apple store and trying it out for yourself, see if you can really notice it. Another thing that might have been nice to see on the iPad mini was just slightly smaller bezels, which would have given digital artists a bit more room. But you know, all in all, it's actually quite good to have something to grip onto that doesn't cover the screen, and so I'm not necessarily against bezels on a device like this. I would, on the other hand, have really liked to see Face ID because Touch ID just feels a little bit outdated and awkward today. But at least as someone who's moving over from the iPad mini 5, I can finally get rid of that lightning cable, and all of my Apple devices, apart from the Magic Trackpad, are now USB-C, so that's really handy for traveling. But okay, we've made it this far without speaking too much about the elephant in the room, which I do have to kind of class as a missed opportunity, and that is Apple Intelligence. Because let's face it, this iPad mini 7 only really exists so that it can bring it up to the bare minimum specs available to run Apple Intelligence. It's using binned A17 chips, which are a poorer version of last year's iPhone chips, and it's going to be the slowest device that you can actually run Apple Intelligence on. The big question is whether the Apple Intelligence features are even worth it anyway. 18.1 has at least launched now, so I can say that I've tested the refine feature. It does clean up my handwriting, but at the same time, I do feel like if you're the kind of person who likes to make things look really nice with your handwriting, you're probably good at handwriting anyway, and using refine might kind of not really interest you that much. Using cleanup is really useful if you want to get awkward things out the background of photos, especially if you're not the sort of person who's comfortable using things like Photoshop. And it is really cool to actually see how things disappear into the ether just by circling them on your iPad. For me, I don't know, I really like the idea of photos just being a record of time, and taking things out of the background just feels like strangely dishonest and fictional to me. But I don't know, time will tell whether I'll actually use it or not. I definitely know that some people will absolutely use it. If you've got like an amazing photo of your kid on the beach, but there's just like one creepy guy in the background, then yeah, take them out and you'll probably have a better memory from it. But realistically, a lot of the interesting updates like Image Playground are still yet to be released and even revealed properly. We're all kind of waiting for this smarter Siri to emerge with things like ChatGPT integration, but honestly, as it stands at the moment, Siri is still pretty dumb, can't understand a mildly Scouse accent a lot of the time. And yeah, I don't know. I have hopes for it, but is it worth getting an entirely new device just to use Siri slightly better? No. To be honest, no. I think there are just those of us who absolutely love this form factor and see it as the purest example of a tablet that strips all of the nonsense out of the way and just does what you want it to do with minimal fuss. It's by far the most portable iPad, the one that truly feels like a digital notebook, and it even comes in some nice new colour options this time around. At the end of the day, there are probably now amazing deals going for the iPad mini 6 and even the iPad mini 5, which will still achieve a lot of what the iPad mini sets out to do. I just hope that this relatively minimal spec bump isn't a sign of things to come. We've seen how Apple has phased out the iPhone mini over the past few years. I really hope that this isn't the last iPad mini we see. Believe it or not, I actually once tried to replace my laptop with an iPad Pro. So check out that video to see how it went. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in a bit.